Hello my flying friends. I got a nice comment from Alex the 89. He watched my LiveTime Scoring in FPV drone racing and said you got to do a tutorial on how to set up LiveTime. So I have a new track I need to create and an event associated with that track, so I'm just going to go ahead and do it and take you along and explain why I'm doing what, and hopefully that helps you. Alright, so I have LiveTime opened up. So I actually am using a Mac, but I'm using VMware to boot into the Windows side. So I'm using the Immersion RC Lap RF puck. I've done a review on that, and you can see that review here. And on my Mac, I cannot get it to work with Ethernet cable, so I have to use a USB cable. So my timing puck is turned on, and I'm going to go ahead and plug the USB into the computer. You can see here now that the decoder has turned green, indicating that it has communication. But if it doesn't have communication, you actually need to open up your computer management, go to Device Manager, and ports, COM and LPT. If you twirl that down, you see that my USB port, serial port, is COM3. I'm going to go ahead and unplug the lap RF, and then you will see as it refreshes that COM3 port goes away. I'm going to plug it back in. Oh, and also the decoder is now red in LiveTime. So now plug back in, it says COM3, so I know I'm good. So how I get to this window is I click on the decoders up here icon and the connection. You can name it how you wish, and then you can tell whether or not it's USB, Ethernet, or Bluetooth. Then here's where you would select COM, whatever it is according to your computer. If I select COM1, then it won't be communicating to the decoder anymore, and the decoder goes red because it's not on the right USB COM port. So I'm going to go back to COM3, and if I go to the Settings tab, here's where you can turn on or off however many channels you want to receive. So from my last event, I used 8 receiver options, and I used race band 1 through 8. And it tells you your frequency and then the RSSI value. Right now I don't have any drones plugged in, so it's just kind of picking up whatever radio frequencies are in the area. So talking about the gain, you can see that there are different values. The thresholds, I've found some information on it, and the best information I've found is it's a tricky thing to get right, but if you just leave it at 800, it's a great place to start. I originally thought the threshold was some value that this RSSI had to overcome in order to work, but it's a totally different meaning, so I'm not going to mess with it. 800 works for me. So let's say if you're doing a race and the timing puck is getting too sensitive, it's receiving signals that people have crossed it, but they're not even close to the timing puck. What you can do is go over here to the sensitivity, and the default is 0, minus, or 2 minuses, plus, or 2 pluses. So for example, if I just went down to 2 minuses, give it a second to update. Oh, and then I'm going to hit adjust gain. Give it a second to update. Now you'll see all of these have jumped down to 54 gain instead of 58. If I take this back to 0 and click on the adjust gain, by the way, you shouldn't do that during a race because it would mess up on the timing. So now as a bulk setting, they're all back to the same 58. So you can adjust the gain overall. Also, you should probably set your race power. So indoor racing, we're at 25 milliwatts. The communication tab just kind of keeps a running tab of, yeah, it's a serial communication. You know, it's recording just fine. So that's how I set up the puck. So the next thing, tracks. So in here you've seen the different tracks that I've created for each time I use the LiveTime at a different location. But now we're going to start fresh, so we're going to create a new track. I'm going to come down to the bottom left, hit create new track, and give it a name. We're going to call it Suite 700 Whoopin'. And then you select a track, whether it's FPV indoor or outdoor. It's going to be indoor. And the length, I usually never change it because each time we race there, it's always a different length. So I just hit save. My track is now created. So the records are, just as you've done different events there, this will update as you go. So under the track listing, you can see that I have a check mark next to track Suite 700 because that is right now the current active track. So we're going to have an event this weekend. So I'll get to events in a second, but I just want to touch on classes. So classes are just arbitrary. You can make it whatever you want to. If you want to create a class, you saw us had some whoops, so we can do a test track. You can change your color if you want to. You can give it some notes, select a category, quadcopter, classes, and then so these are some of them that I already have there. But I'm just going to hit cancel because I don't need to create a new class. So the Whoop class is what we typically race under. The audio setting. So what you can do is, in my case, when I race, I don't have someone calling the timings and all that stuff. So I want to be able to hit start for the race and have the computer do a countdown and then start the race timing, and then automatically announce each lap, what pilot and what their lap time was. So what I usually do is you can either do countdown to start or countdown number. And then you can specify, I usually do 5 ticks, and then delay between the ticks, we'll do 1 second. And then I usually like to do the random start delay from anywhere from 0 seconds to 2 seconds. So how that will go is it'll count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and we'll start and it will do the start tone anywhere from 0 to 2 seconds. So it's kind of a random start, so everybody's not just starting when they think that it's going to start. They have to actually wait for the tone. Now I'm going to go to events. And since this is a new event, I'm going to create an event. We'll give it a name. And it's going to be track. It's already selected, Suite 700. You can give it a date. So we'll just say the 18th. If you want to do your start and stop times, you can do that. Type, qualifier to main or best qualifier per class. I always select qualify to main. Alright, and the rest of the stuff I usually just leave default. There's some videos out there that show you how, if you want to do point system and all that. Alright, so my event has been created. Up here it tells it on the 18th. It's going to be qualifying to main. And it says require membership false. So what's going to happen is, first of all, we have to add a class. So I'm going to select Whoop. I'm going to hit Add Class. And you can see now over the classes in event order, there are Whoop. So let's say if you had 2 types of classes. You had a spec racing, and then you had an open class. You could actually have the 2 different classes in this event. We just make it simple and we just say Whoop. Alright, so under timing, I don't really change anything right here. I go to Rounds tab, and then for practice, Since we're just practicing on the laps, and I don't necessarily need to do heads up or stagger because people are just going across the timing gate at random times. Length setting, you can do time or laps. So if you want to give a person like 10 laps of practice, you could set laps here and say number of laps. I usually just do time, and you can bump it up, say 10 minutes of practice. Next is the seating tab. And under seating, it would be where you want to run some controlled practices, and then from the fastest times, that's how you seed into the qualifying rounds. So for here, I set it to heads up. Length, you can do time or laps. We usually race for 2 minutes. So I'm going to, and we usually race 3 pilots. And I'm just going to set it for 2 minutes because usually batteries start dying after 2 minutes of whoops. And then next is qualifying. So I also want to make qualifying heads up. Length, I also want to keep it time. Number of pilots, 3. And length of the race, 2 minutes. And then the main is also going to be a heads up start. So that means basically as they hear the tone, they start racing. It's not staggered start, sometimes as they do in cars. Length again will be time. So letter main, that's because I'm using the free version. Letter main is the only thing I can do, and letter main basically means that it's A main, B main, C main, D main, and so forth. A being the top pilots. So what I usually do is change the A main, which is like the main header, the main feature, to being triple. And it's going to be 3 pilots, 2 minutes of race. And let's say if I have 9 pilots that have registered for the racing. So right now I only have 2 mains, A and B. So I need to add a main event. And I'm going to change it from triple to being single. And you can see by default it makes it letter B, and then the other one is C main. So let's say we start off with C main, which are the 3 slowest pilots. I'm going to put in number of pilots 3, time 3 minutes. And to make things fun, I'm going to allow 1 number of bump ups. So what that means is with the 3 pilots, you're going to have 1 first place winner. That first place winner is allowed to move up into the B main. So in order to make things work, you can't already have the B main with a full slate of 3 pilots. So you have to actually make this 2 pilots. Because what's going to happen is when it seeds the order, it's going to already have 2 pilots in the B main and 1 empty. And what's going to happen once you race the C main, that first place finisher moves up into the B main. And then I'm also going to make it 1 bump up. So that means I'm going to need to make the A main 2. So doing the math, that means I actually need to do 1 more main event. So D main starts off with 3 pilots. First place moves up. Then we got 2 pilots plus the 1 that bumped up. And then they finish, bumps up into B main. First place moves up to A main, and they do 3 sets of races. So that's how I set up the event. Audio. Here's how we're going to do the countdown number, and this is already set up from when I created the event. 5 countdown ticks, 1 second delay between each one, random start of 0 and 2 seconds, and I don't really deal with splits. Alright, so we're still under Events tab. We just finished the classes. So next we need to go to Seats. And in FPV, seats are the frequencies that you race with. And for the whoops, we usually pick like IMD 5, which is intermodulation distortion. It's a preset number of 5 select frequencies that do not interact with each other as much. If you're doing race band, then you can just say, race band 8, and it'll automatically add. But I'm going to do IMD 5. So I select IMD 5, and you can see right there, these are the ones that experts have said E2, F2, F4, F7, and E6. Those are the best ones to use for racing. It automatically assigns a color, and that's just for your arbitrary sake, whatever color makes sense to you. Now, the camera grid position, if you are using LiveTime and in combination with like VTXs that pull in the DVR from each drone, and then you use the OBS software suite that overlays the DVR from the FPV and LiveTime, the scoring, it'll automatically tell you that E2 racer will always be in camera grid position 1. I only have 4 receivers, so what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to eliminate F4. So I'm going to highlight it once and I'm going to say remove. So now I'm down to, since I only have 4 receivers, I need to now change it up here so the camera grid makes sense again. 1, 2, make this 3, and then 4. So now automatically when you create a race, whatever racer has E1 assigned to their quad, their DVR is always going to be in the top left. F2, their video is always going to be top right. F7, bottom left. E6, bottom right. Registrations. So here what I do is I now switch to the pilot tab, and then these are pilots that I've already created into my database. Those have been pilots that have actually showed up to events, and I just have them in my database so I can check mark that yes, they showed up and they paid. So I'll go ahead and select Robert Goff, Captain Mavic, and once I do that, then you can see here that I can check I'm registered and then I'm paid. So you registered for the event and you've paid. I don't really mess with the rest of this stuff, but what you can do is you can hit edit and listen to how the phonetic name, how the computer pronounces it. If it doesn't sound right, you can see how I've done Captain Mavic, and that's how it pronounces the computer, Captain Mavic, the best way. You just have to kind of play around with the phonetic name. So let's just go ahead and arbitrarily add a few more pilots so we have something interesting to race. We'll get 9 pilots. By the way, if you are using the free version, you can only register 10 pilots. So now we're done with our pilots. We've got everybody checked in that's paid for. If I go to practice and then toggle on practice, what's going to happen is it's just going to make the timer puck active, and as quads go across, you'll start seeing the times populate over here. Alright, so I'm going to uncheck practice, and I'm going to go ahead and assume like this is going to be a race. The next thing I do is go to schedule. I'm going to create next round. So here is the type, whether or not you want it to be a practice round, a seeding round. The practice round would be like if you want to just double check, make sure that all the quads are going across the timing puck and being registered. So we could do that. And then here, if you have different classes like Whoop and Spec, you could check mark what type of round this one is. Seeding options, you can do random order, pilot ability, final results, I usually just keep it random order. And then other options, if you want to keep the quad numbers, we'll show you that here in a second. I don't really worry about that. What I do check is make sure the FPV frequencies. Keep the same FPV frequencies so that Captain Mavic would always have E2 when they race. And then I hit generate. All right, so something didn't work. I should have had more heats generated. So I'm going to go ahead and delete practice round. And I'm going to double check my events, make sure the setup is correct. So rounds practice, there it is. So practice round, I had 10 number of pilots, so I'm actually going to change that to 3. Now I want to go back to schedule, and I create next round, generate. Bam, there we are. So it automatically takes 3 pilots and puts it into each heat. So we have a total of 9 pilots, 3 per heat. So this is heat 1, heat 2, and heat 3. It automatically assigns the frequencies E2, F2, and F7. If by chance you need to change Kiger FPV, you can right click and say change frequency to, and then you can select E6. So that's how you would change the frequency of a certain pilot. Now when I go to racing, it automatically pulls up practice round 1, whoop class, heat 1 of 3. Now you can see here the race length is wrong, so I'm going to go ahead and go to settings and round, and it was set to 10, which is what I had demonstrated in the example earlier, for 10 minutes for practice. So I'm just going to change that to 2 minutes. I'm going to hit the settings to close that tab up. So now I'm ready to start the first practice round. I'll hit start race, and it's going to give me the 5-second countdown and then random start. Now when I go to racing, it automatically pulls up practice round 1, whoop class, heat 1 of 3. Now you can see here the race length is wrong, so I'm going to go ahead and go to settings and round, and it was set to 10, which is what I had demonstrated in the example earlier, for 10 minutes for practice. So I'm just going to change that to 2 minutes. I'm going to hit the settings to close that tab up, and then now the race is going. The countdown timer has started, and I'm just going to arbitrarily pick the racers as they go across. Now you saw a red show up there. That means that the pilot tried to go across the start gate again, but it was too soon because you set up a minimum lap time. So let's go ahead and finish race and show you what I'm talking about. So under settings, and then under the timing tab, here is a 5-second minimum lap time. So let's say you've done some practice rounds and you know the fastest pilot, it takes them 10 seconds to do one complete lap, their fastest time. What you could do is have the minimum lap time be like 8 seconds or 7 seconds. So that means that a person would have to, the timer will only record a correct lap if they are greater than 7 seconds. So now we're in practice round 2. I'm going to start it. It started. All 3 racers went across. Now it has to wait at least 7 seconds before they can come across again. The yellow means that they've got a current or fast lap. They counted. And you can see that the positions change according to that lap. So this time Juma was in first place. And then the green shows the fastest lap. And over here on the right, I've got it set to estimated position so that it shows you of all the racers that have raced so far, who is in first, second, and so forth. So finish this race. Select the third heat. Go ahead and start. And we'll go ahead and finish. Alright, so now the gray means that the pilots have finished the race. There is no more heats to do. So I go back to the schedule tab. You can see that they're all grayed out here. Now remember, I changed the Kiger FPV to E6. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create the next round. The first round we did was a practice. So this next round I'm going to make it a qualifying round. And then here's where you need to pay attention to your seeding options. You can seed by the fastest top 3 consecutive. What I'm going to do is, since the qualifying rounds, I just usually put duplicate last round, start in the same order. And here's where I make sure that the keep the same frequency is selected. If I hit generate, now you're going to see that it's in the same order, same number of pilots, and that the Kiger still has the changed E6 frequency. This time it's a qualifying round. So I go to the racing, and just for this video's sake, I'm going to make the minimum lap time 1 second, just so I can go through it quicker. Start race. Finish race. Also for the video, I'm just going to go back to the events and the audio. I'm going to take off the countdown ticks. So that heat is done. Heat gets all grayed out, so I go to heat 2. New set of racers. Still qualifying round 1. Alright. Hey, look at that. Captain Mavic's in first place. Alright, so now I go back to schedule. And this time I'm going to create a next round. And I'm going to change it to being main. So we've done all of our qualifying rounds. Typically I will do 5 qualifying rounds. Depends on how many pilots you have and how much time you have. So still Whoop class. The seating options, I just usually leave it as it is the default. Now here's where you need to pay attention. So there are 9 pilots. So this A, B, C, and D main needs to be at least, count up to 9 pilots. So 2, 4, 6, and 3 is 9. So that will work. Keep the same video frequency. And so when I hit generate, now here are my final main races. So D main is first. It's the 3 slowest pilots. Then we have C main. It's already got 2 pilots there. It's waiting for the first place winner of the D. And then the A main is A1, A2, and A3. So it's got, again, 2 pilots waiting for the third place finisher, or the first place finisher from the previous round. So if I hit racing, it is D main, 2 minutes, start. So it shows you who finished first, second, and third. So Carson was the fastest, and he has a check mark here next to bump up, because we set it up so that the first place finisher will bump up to the next main. So I'm going to come down to the bottom left and hit finish bumps. So it tells me now that Carson moved up into the C main. So let's twirl down, C main. There it is. Carson is in the third slot. So there's an explanation point here. And this current version of FPV 3.9.2, they put an exclamation point here so it helps the race director know that there has been a frequency change. Whereas if I go back to D main, Carson was on F2, but in order to go to the C main, Carson has to change to F7 because we already had a pilot that was assigned to F2 from the previous. So as a race director, you will kind of want to give them heads up, say, hey, get a fresh battery, and by the way, change to F7. So we'll start the race. Whoa, look at that, Carson's on a roll. So I'm going to go ahead and hit finish bumps. So now Carson bumps up again. He is now into the B main. So we have Juma, Iron Eagle, and Carson. Again, look at exclamation point, so he had to change his race frequency again. Start race. Look at that, Carson's on fire. So he's going to bump up again. We'll do finish bump up. And now we're into our A main. So it's going to be the same 3 pilots racing 3 times for the triple A main. And exclamation point means Carson has to change his video frequency again. So start race. And then we'll finish. So there's your finishing order. Again, gray indicates that the pilots have finished or lap. Go to A2. Same order, same race frequencies. We're just going to race again. All right, that race is done, and this could be the last race of the evening, A3. So let's stop right here, because some race directors like to do something what they call chase the ace. And what the chase the ace means is the first person to win 2 races. They don't have to be back to back. They've won twice and races are over. Everybody goes home. So what's going to happen is, let's go ahead and do this race. So if I hit finish race, that's going to finish it up, and there's going to be no more races. You cannot create any more racing after this. So what people do, that if they're doing chase the ace, they actually do a false start, and they just write down on paper that Jeremy won that last one. Finish the race. Race is over. And if I go back to events, and then upper left, first time racing was the race I just did. If I hit change, now of all the races that I've completed on this system, first time racing has a check mark for complete. So that means this race has been completed. There were 9 registered and 9 paid pilots. The race occurred on this date on this track, Suite 700. So I know that's a lot, but the more you do it, you get faster and faster with it. And hopefully that has helped. Thanks for watching.